The silence that destroys their ego, Stoicism. What if I told you that the most powerful weapon against toxic people, narcissists, and ego-driven individuals isn't what you say, but what you don't say? Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote in his personal journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But here's what he didn't write. He didn't write about the arguments he had, the insults he hurled, or the verbal battles he won, because the greatest emperors, philosophers, and leaders throughout history understood something that escapes most people today. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the ultimate power move. I'm going to show you exactly how strategic silence can completely disarm anyone trying to provoke you, manipulate you, or feed their ego at your expense. You'll learn why responding to every attack actually makes you weaker, and how the ancient Stoics used silence as their secret weapon. We'll cover the psychology behind why silence triggers certain people, the 7 types of situations where silence is your best strategy, and most importantly, how to master this skill without becoming passive or weak. So if you're tired of getting drawn into pointless arguments, if you're ready to take back your mental peace, and if you want to learn the most sophisticated form of psychological defense, stay with me. Chapter 1. The Psychology of Silence. Let's start with a story that happened just last week. Sarah, a marketing manager, was in a team meeting when her colleague, James, started attacking her project publicly. Old Sarah would have defended herself immediately, gotten emotional, maybe even raised her voice, but Sarah had been studying Stoicism. Instead of reacting, she simply looked at James calmly, said nothing, and returned her attention to her notes. What happened next was remarkable. James continued his attack for about 30 more seconds, but without Sarah's defensive responses to fuel him, his words started sounding hollow. The room became uncomfortable. James realized he was the only one talking, and he gradually stopped. The meeting moved on. Sarah's silence had not only protected her, it had exposed James's unprofessional behavior to everyone in the room. Here's the science behind what happened. When someone attacks you verbally, they're expecting a specific neurological response. They want to trigger your amygdala, your brain's alarm system. They're literally trying to hijack your emotional state. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who went from slave to teacher of emperors, understood this 2,000 years ago. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But here's the deeper truth. People who attack others are usually trying to regulate their own emotions. They feel insecure, threatened, or inadequate, so they try to make you feel the same way. Your angry response literally feeds their ego. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to enjoy conflict? How they get energized by arguments? That's because they're emotional vampires feeding off your reactions. When you respond with silence, you're not giving them what they need. It's like refusing to feed a fire. Eventually it burns out. The ancient Stoics called this maintaining your inner citadel. Your mind is a fortress, and every emotional reaction opens a gate for invaders. Now, I know what you're thinking, but won't people think, I'm weak if I don't defend myself? This is the biggest misconception about strategic silence. Weakness is losing control of your emotions. Weakness is letting someone else determine your internal state. Strength is choosing your response deliberately. Marcus Aurelius faced barbarian invasions, political conspiracies, and personal betrayals. Do you think he responded to every slight, every criticism, every attack? Of course not. He chose his battles wisely. And here's the beautiful irony. The people who try hardest to provoke, you are usually the ones most disturbed by your silence, because your calm exposes their chaos. Chapter 2. The Ego's Greatest Weakness. Let me tell you about the ego's greatest secret. It cannot survive without external validation. Think of the ego like a plant that needs constant watering. Attention, reactions, drama, these are its nutrients. Without them, it withers. I want you to imagine someone you know who's particularly difficult. Maybe a family member who always starts arguments. A coworker who loves drama, or that person on social media who seems to post controversial things just to get responses. What do they all have in common? They need your reaction to feel important. Seneca, who advised Emperor Nero and was one of Rome's wealthiest men, wrote something profound about this. He said, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." What he meant was that when you stop feeding someone's ego with your reactions, you're not just ending their power over you. You're beginning your own empowerment. Let me share a real example. David worked with a boss who was a classic narcissist. This boss would publicly criticize employees, take credit for their work, and create drama in every meeting. For months, David tried different strategies, defending himself, providing evidence, even going to HR. Nothing worked because David was playing the wrong game. Then David learned about Stoic silence. The next time his boss started a public attack, David simply listened without expression, said, "I understand your concerns," and returned to his work. No defense, no counterattack, no emotion. The boss was confused. He escalated, trying to get a reaction. David remained calm. Eventually, the boss looked foolish attacking someone who wasn't fighting back. Within 2 weeks, other employees started noticing the pattern. The boss's behavior became obviously toxic when it wasn't being met with defensive reactions. Within a month, several people had complaints with HR about the same behavior David had been enduring alone. David's silence didn't just protect him. It exposed the true nature of his boss's character. This is what the Stoics understood. You cannot control others, but you can control how you respond to others. And often, not responding is the most powerful response. Here's the psychological principle at work. People with large egos have what psychologists call narcissistic supply. They need constant feeding of attention, drama, and reactions. When you argue with them, you're literally supplying them with what they need. When you get upset, you're proving to them that they have power over you. But silence breaks this cycle completely. Think about the last time someone tried to start an argument with you online. What happened when other people didn't engage? The person usually escalated, posted more and more desperately, and eventually looked foolish talking to themselves. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus was born a slave, but he understood power better than most free men. He said, "No one can hurt you without your permission." Every time you react emotionally to someone's provocation, you're giving them permission to hurt you. Every time you remain silent and composed, you're taking that permission away. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your silence doesn't just affect the person attacking you, it affects everyone watching. When you respond to aggression with calm dignity, observers don't see weakness. They see strength. They see someone who has mastered themselves. When you respond to insults with emotional outbursts, observers see someone who can be easily manipulated. The ancient Stoics were politicians, generals, and leaders. They understood that every interaction is a performance, and the audience is always judging who has real power. The person who maintains composure under attack demonstrates true strength. The person who loses composure demonstrates that they can be controlled. Chapter 3, The 7 Situations Where Silence is Golden. Now that you understand the psychology, let's get practical. There are 7 specific situations where strategic silence will serve you better than any words ever could. Situation 1, the baiting attack. This is when someone says something specifically designed to trigger you. They might insult your appearance, your intelligence, your family, or your beliefs. Example, you're not smart enough to understand this. Your instinct is to prove them wrong, to defend your intelligence. But that's exactly what they want, to make you emotional and defensive. The Stoic response? Silence, maybe a slight nod. Maybe interesting perspective, then move on. This is especially common in professional settings or family dynamics. Your first instinct might be to assert your authority verbally, to explain why you're qualified or why your decision is correct. But often, silence followed by consistent action is more powerful than any explanation. As the Stoics knew, authority that has to be constantly defended isn't real authority. True authority is demonstrated through competence, consistency, and character, not through verbal dominance. Now, understanding these situations is one thing. Actually implementing strategic silence in the heat of the moment, that's where the real challenge begins. Let me show you exactly how to master this skill. Chapter 4. The Art of Strategic Silence. Mastering strategic silence isn't about becoming a doormat or suppressing your emotions. It's about becoming so emotionally intelligent that you choose your responses like a master. Chess player chooses their moves. The Stoics had a specific technique for this. They called it prososche, the discipline of attention. Here's your step-by-step process. Step 1. The pause protocol. When someone says something provocative, don't respond immediately. Count to 3. Take a breath. This interrupts your automatic reaction pattern. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." In that pause, you're ending your old pattern of reactive behavior and beginning a new pattern of conscious choice. Step 2. The internal check. Ask yourself 3 questions. What is this person trying to achieve? What would my response give them? What outcome do I actually want here? Most people skip this step and react from emotion. Stoics respond from reason. Step 3. The strategic response. Now you choose silence, minimal acknowledgement, or redirection. Silence when they're clearly baiting you or trying to start drama. Minimal acknowledgement when you need to show you heard them but don't want to engage. I understand your perspective. Or, that's one way to look at it. Redirection when you want to control the conversation's direction. Let's focus on, or what I'm more interested in is, let me give you a real example of how this works. Jake's mother-in-law constantly criticized his parenting. Last Christmas, she said in front of the whole family, "Jake never disciplines the children properly. That's why they're so wild." Old Jake would have gotten defensive, started explaining his parenting philosophy, maybe even criticized her parenting in return. New Jake used the protocol. Pause. He counted to 3. Internal check. She's trying to undermine me publicly and wants me to get emotional. Strategic response. Complete silence. He just smiled slightly and continued his conversation with his brother-in-law. The mother-in-law repeated her criticism more loudly. Jake maintained his silence. What happened? Other family members started feeling uncomfortable. Someone changed the subject. The mother-in-law looked petty and mean-spirited. By the end of the evening, several family members approached Jake privately to apologize for her behavior and compliment his restraint. His silence had not only protected him, it had revealed her true character to everyone present. Step 4. The energy redirect. This is the advanced technique. Instead of using your mental energy to formulate counterattacks, use it for something productive. When someone is being toxic, internally start planning your next project, thinking about your goals, or appreciating something good in your life. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. While dealing with political enemies and battlefield stress, he wrote philosophical reflections that still inspire people. 2,000 years later. Step 5. The consistent application. This is where most people fail. They use strategic silence once or twice, then go back to their old reactive patterns. The Stoics understood that virtue is a practice, not a one-time decision. You have to consistently choose the wise response until it becomes automatic. Start small. Practice with minor irritations. The person who cuts you off in traffic, the rude cashier, the passive-aggressive email. As you build your silence muscle with small challenges, you'll be ready for the big ones. The advanced technique, the compassionate perspective. Here's something the ancient Stoics understood that most modern people miss. The people who attack you are usually suffering. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. Nothing cheers you so much as the examples of every virtue exhibited by your contemporaries." But he also wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." When you can see the person attacking you as someone who is probably insecure, hurt, or struggling with their own demons, your silence becomes not just strategic, it becomes compassionate. You're not staying silent to punish them. You're staying silent to avoid making their suffering worse. by engaging in their toxic pattern. This is the highest level of Stoic practice, responding to attack with understanding rather than counterattack. Chapter 5. Common mistakes and how to avoid them. Before we conclude, I need to address the most common mistakes people make when applying strategic silence. These mistakes can actually make situations worse, so pay close attention. Mistake 1, passive-aggressive silence. This is when you're silent on the outside but seething on the inside. Your body language, facial expressions, and energy are screaming anger even though you're not speaking. True Stoic silence comes from genuine detachment, not suppressed rage. If you're using silence as a weapon to punish someone, you're not practicing Stoicism, you're practicing manipulation. The solution: work on actually letting go of the anger, not just hiding it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" Mistake 2, the complete shutdown. Some people think strategic silence means never speaking up about anything important. This is not what the Stoics taught. They were active participants in life, politics, and relationships. Cato the Younger was famous for his speeches in the Roman Senate. Seneca wrote extensively. Marcus Aurelius led armies and governed an empire. Strategic silence is about choosing when not to engage in pointless conflicts, not about becoming passive in all situations. Mistake 3, the timing error. Using silence at the wrong time can be problematic. There are situations where you do need to speak up. When someone is spreading false information about you professionally, when you need to set clear boundaries, when silence might be interpreted as agreement with something harmful, when legal or safety issues are involved, the key is learning to distinguish between ego-driven attacks, where silence works, and legitimate issues that require response. Mistake 4, the superiority complex. Some people use their Stoic silence to feel superior to others. Look how enlightened I am compared to these emotional people. This defeats the entire purpose. True Stoicism is humble, not arrogant. Epictetus, who understood what it meant to be powerless, taught to don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. If your silence makes you feel superior rather than peaceful, you're doing it wrong. Mistake 5, the all-or-nothing approach. Thinking you have to be perfectly silent in every situation or you've failed. The Stoics were human. They made mistakes, had bad days, and sometimes reacted emotionally. Marcus Aurelius's personal journal is full of reminders to himself to do better, which suggests he didn't always live up to his own standards. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. How to avoid these mistakes? 1. Regular self-reflection. Ask yourself weekly, am I using silence wisely or as a weapon? 2. Study the context. Learn to recognize when engagement is necessary versus when it's just ego. Thus, practice genuine compassion. Remember that difficult people are usually struggling with something. 4. Stay humble. Your ability to remain silent doesn't make you better than others. 5. Be patient with yourself. This is a lifelong practice, not a quick fix. Remember, the goal isn't to become emotionless or passive. The goal is to become so emotionally mature that you respond to situations consciously rather than reactively. As Seneca wrote, every change of fortune affects either our life or our character. Since we cannot control our fortune, let us control our character. Conclusion and call to action. We've covered a lot of ground in these 40 minutes, but I want to leave you with the most important point. Strategic silence isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about choosing your conflicts wisely. The ancient Stoics lived through wars, political upheavals, personal tragedies, and social chaos. They didn't survive and thrive by avoiding all difficulties. They thrived by responding to difficulties with wisdom rather than emotion. In our modern world, we're bombarded with provocations constantly. Social media, toxic workplaces, difficult family members, road rage, political arguments. There are infinite opportunities to get dragged into pointless conflicts. But here's what I want you to understand. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you're not just protecting your peace, you're developing your character. You're becoming the kind of person who can't be easily manipulated. provoked or controlled by others. Let me leave you with 3 challenges. Challenge 1, the 24-hour test. For the next 24 hours, commit to the pause protocol. Every time someone says something that would normally trigger you, count to 3 before responding. See how this changes your interactions. Challenge 2, the observation exercise. Start paying attention to how other people handle conflict. Notice who stays calm under pressure and who gets easily triggered. You'll start to see the difference in how others perceive and treat these 2 types of people. Challenge 3, the Stoic study. Pick one quote from Marcus Aurelius Seneca or Epictetus and reflect on it for 1 week. Really think about how to apply it to your daily life. Here are some resources to continue your journey. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, his personal journal. Letters by Seneca, practical Stoic advice. Discourses by Epictetus, foundational Stoic principles. And if this video helped you, here's how you can help me continue creating this content. Like this video if you found it valuable. It helps YouTube show it to people who need these ideas. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. I release new Stoic wisdom videos every week. Share this with someone who's dealing with difficult people or toxic relationships. Sometimes we all need a reminder that we have more power than we think. Comment below and tell me about a time when staying silent served you better than arguing. I read every comment and often feature the best stories in future videos. And if you want to dive deeper into Stoic practices, check out the playlist I've created on practical Stoicism. There's a link in the description. Remember, the goal isn't to become cold or distant. The goal is to become so emotionally intelligent that you can choose love over fear, wisdom over reactivity, and peace over drama. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his final entry, accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate associates you. But he might have added, and choose silence when words would only make things worse. Your silence can be your strength. Your peace can be your power. Your wisdom can be your weapon against a world that often rewards the loudest voice instead of the wisest heart. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and remember, the most powerful response is sometimes no response at all.